mix of both real estate and also giving back and, fulfilling a need that the community has.
Thank you. Sophie May?
Hi, I'm Sophia May de la Monyoy. I am a realtor. I do residential and commercial real estate. I am very much interested in this because I'd like to build wealth through real estate, be part of this community, as well as I'm working on one such a business model for some African countries.
Great. Paula?
Well, I'm Paula, and I met Vanda years ago. I teach at DeVry University online. I'm interested in the co-development for community. It's we're in a subdivision here, but nobody talks to anyone. Neighbors are afraid of other neighbors, so it's just really a sad case. Everybody's polite and things like that, putting on the front, but I would love to be in a community of color and where we know each other and get along and can lean on each other for concerns, issues as we grow old gracefully.
Yes, thank you. And I'm Vanda. I'm a realtor as well. And I have this vision of this co-housing community where we can all, like Paula said, live together, help each other out, have community gatherings. We all know each other, multi-generational. I live with my 84-year-old mother-in-law, who is a great-grandmother. I live with my 2 grown children and 14-year-old granddaughter and my husband. So we're in a multi-generational household, but we're all getting up in age and we have a nice home, but if it's just us, there's nobody here to, share our pool with and do a lot of social things with. And so we want a community where we're all living closer together where we can do that. So my kids can have their own independent place. Me and my husband can have our own place. Mother-in-law have her own place, or live in a house with other people, like-minded people. So it can kind of be a Golden Girls type of situation for some, if that's what they want, or it can be a single family for others. So we want to get some acreage so that we can kind of build what we want and envision our community the way we want it. So I met Dallas through his boss with Iron Build Design, and I'll let him kind of introduce himself to you. And she was on last week, Paula. No, Paula, you weren't there. Well, nobody was there from this last week. So
yeah, I wasn't there.
Yeah, I think I sent a recording out to you guys. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it, she is the owner of that business and Dallas works with her. So go ahead, Dallas, and introduce yourself.
Pleasure to meet you guys. I'll wait for Tosha. Hi, my name is Dallas, as she was saying before. I work with Iron Design Build. So we do a litany of things really across 3 different sectors, which is our residential, commercial, and industrial spaces. So what that will look like is a lot of things like in reference to this. So if it's a new development, we take care of it. If we have to take the face off of projects, we do that as well. Everything from the conceptual, from the design all the way up and through the permitting, the planning, and all the things in between. So a situation like this is definitely something that is very formal for us because we do a lot in reference to getting bodies of people together to be able to come in a syndicate of sorts to get an idea and a vision taken care of. So that's kind of, the place that we sit. And I think it's great looking at a lot of the preliminary stuff I got a chance to look over with you guys and how you want to go about this parcel of land in this community, because I think it's very necessary. And I think the co-housing is a really awesome niche in a sector. So a lot of what we're able to do is to facilitate you guys bringing that vision to life.
Thank you. Hi, Tosha. We're just doing a quick introduction. And you're the last one to come on, so you're going to show your face? I can't hear you if you're talking.
Hold on, can you hear me now?
I hear you now.
Okay, it's my earphones. Yeah, I just got in the house. My apologies. Hi, I'm Toisha Solomon. I am community coordinator. I do a lot of community work. I started Black Neighbors of Katy with the goal to pull in businesses and homeowners together. And that was the idea. I talked to Vanda for some time about my vision to create a Black neighborhood and the need to kind of support some of the businesses and having different types of development. So that's kind of where I come in, just kind of, you know, trying to help facilitate and also be a part of the project.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna just jot some of the things that I jotted down that I wanted to let you guys know about, and then we can have a general open session. Next week, I invited attorney Cashmere Terry. She's gonna be our guest to help us set up our entity. She's gonna talk to us about that because that is the first step that we need to do before we purchase any land in in our name. So we need to get our entity set up. We had a great meet and greet at Astor Farm to Table last Thursday. We had 8 people in attendance. And we even had a guy that was from Midwest Bank, and I did give him my pitch deck. And he said he was going to share it with his people to see how they can help, with funding, because we're going to need some money to get all this done. We mentioned about Iron Design Build, and we have Dallas here with us. We took a survey, and I have like 25 questions that I asked the people that came to Astor Farm to Table, and I'll summarize that information and share it with everyone. But basically, we want to have about 30 homes. I had on there 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. 30 was the majority. We all kind of like the same music, which is good, which is R&B, old school, gospel, jazz. There was no country or rock or anything like that on there. Everybody says they have at least $10,000 to contribute to acquire land. Everybody wants a swimming pool. Some other things, are single for them, but for the most part, we all kind of on the same page. I want everybody to do some research on Co-Housing Houston because they're kind of the model that we're gonna base this out of. So just kind of get familiar with that concept because a lot of people aren't familiar with co-housing. They do have it where you can go down there and you can attend any of their information sessions and learn more about co-housing. I took a class through them. My other colleague, Sheila, she went to a conference that they had and, met a lot of people there, but none of them look like us. So this is going to be for us, by us. And then Saturday, Torsha and I, no, that was yesterday. Ooh. Yesterday, Torsha and I went to the Juneteenth celebration they had in Katy. And there we met the Brookshire Economic Development Council member. I met an African American Heritage Foundation founders and the City of Katy Black homeowners. They own about 118 acres there between I-10 and Highway 90 and Donovan Street. And the city was trying to make that all commercial to kind of take that from the Black people. And I know the people that are advocating to reverse that ruling. So that might be an option, you never know. I know Katy, Brookshire, Kendleton, Fort Bend County, Waller, those were kind of some of the areas that we're looking at for purchasing land. So you never know what's going to come our way. And it may not be on the MLS. It may be something that, well, I know so-and-so is selling some property and let's get it from them instead of going through the traditional MLS route. And we have one other person that joined us, Valeria. Hey, can you do a quick introduction of yourself and why you want to do the community housing?
Hi, everybody. I'm still gathering information. I just read up on cohousing of Houston just yesterday. So I'm still doing some research and still kind of probing around. And I just think this is a good situation for us to look at doing for betterment of our communities and stuff like that. So that's about it. I'm always open for good ideas and, you know, things that we can do to prosper and help each other, pull each other up through, you know, everything.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Toysha, did you get a chance to talk with anybody yesterday after I left you?
Yes, I think it was several people that I talked to. I think not necessarily about the housing, but just getting feedback on the community, as far as like why information being shared, having access to certain things. I think one of the things that I was surprised about is just the history. I know you just talked about the history of Katy is very rich. And I think, you know, us being here, who's been here, or the newcomers who's coming, who's just got here, I think it has some weight to it. And that explains why, you know, like the area that we were in, why it's been kind of like non-developed. I didn't know that they were, you know, trying to take some of the property and make it like a commercial. And I think the shocking part when I heard her say this area in Katy was Cane Island. Well, I don't think you guys know, but Cane Island is like one of the prominent high-end subdivisions now. And that was a name that Black, I think he was one of the freemen that named this area Cane Island. That whole area, I can't remember how much acres of land was Cane Island. And that was the Black part of Katy. And so we're just finding all of this out. And, you know, I think it, you know, would be very powerful to share in connecting us back to the past, our ancestors, and just kind of what we're trying to do now.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to reach out to Tanya DeVos probably today or tomorrow and kind of get her take on it. I sent her my vision video, and so I know she hasn't had a chance to look at it yet. Okay, questions, comments, next steps. I mean, I can answer whatever I can answer, but a lot of it I may not know yet.
Yes, I do recall. So the first step you said is an LLC formation with the main core people. And then in terms of funding, how much is the total ask for this co-living Wakili project?
We decided it was going to be about 13 million.
Okay, and then do you want debt, equity, or combination of both?
I'm sorry, I don't know what that means.
Debt is just a loan. Equity means that, you know, an investor comes in and they own part of the project in addition to, you know, what their terms and conditions are. So are you looking for investors or are you just looking for a loan?
Right now, we're going to be the investors, the ones that are starting. And then once we get our property and we start to build out, we will be looking for investors.
Okay.
Because we don't have 13 million.
And then is this the only one project you're going to have with this co-living or do you plan on duplicating or replicating this in different communities?
So I know a few of us want to live in this community. So we're developing this for a place where we want to live. But that doesn't mean that after we live there, we can't, you know, do that other places.
Yes, whether it be in Houston or other parts of the country too, because you're fulfilling two needs, housing as well as need for community. I know even so since the pandemic and even post-pandemic, they were talking about an epidemic of loneliness in America, and a lot of people just generally disconnected and needing to have a sense of community. And I think that is so important, especially among minorities, because traditionally, white and Jewish people have owned and concentrated with wealth and helped their own communities. But I do think it would be very beneficial for our communities to band together to support each other.
You said the key word. My background also too is I'm a HOA board director. I was previously for 6 years, and that was kind of the when we started creating this culture in our neighborhood. That was one of the top things that they said. Why people feel like they don't belong. And how the loneliness is spiking, and really that's a part of people's stress. They said it was with the elderly, but it's also across the board in all generations now. You're absolutely right.
Yep, that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, because my mother-in-law, when I take her out with me, she enjoys it, but most of the time she's just in her room watching TV. There's nowhere to go, nobody's here, and they're lonely. So we want to combat loneliness and depression and isolation. And then we don't want to put our elderly people in nursing homes where they're going to get neglected because the family is, in other parts of the world and can't come check on them. So we got to look out for each other. And the same with children. I talk to this people about this concept and they're like, oh, that would be great for my child. He's the only child. And, I'm gone for work all the time and there's nobody around. And this way, we have grandma, grandpa there.
Yes, like a family. Even I don't know if anybody here are believers or not, but even in the Bible and the book of Acts, it says they had all things common. Those that didn't have gave to those who had, and it was that community living where everybody watched out for each other, and everybody considered what they had belonged to their neighbor. And even different demographics, single people, there's an epidemic of loneliness even among single people, and depression, and just turn into negative behaviors and lifestyles. So it's all different demographics, all different age groups could definitely benefit from a symbiotic community living.
Right.
So Vanda, you sent out something that when you just said it was like going to be 1.5 million. Is that the land that you are focusing on?
Oh, okay. So I was riding going over to Sunterra and I passed a sign that said 12 acres available. And so I did a U-turn and came back and they happened to have a yard sale. So I drove up in there. And so I was asking them about the house and the property, and the lady gave me a tour. So that's what I sent you guys. And I didn't know the price of it till I called the agent because she didn't know. She said, you had to talk to my husband. And so when I was leaving, I called the agent and she said it was 1.something million. And I'm like, okay, that's a little much. And they're building Sunterra right across the street. So I know they moved because they were in the country and now it's getting built up all around them. So they've got all this equity, but I don't know if that's, going to work out for us because that's a bit much. But it did have a house on it already.
Yeah, that four-bedroom. Yeah.
Yeah, and it had that garage on it. So it'd be perfect for somebody doing a personal care home. They had that money, but
that's a big price.
Yeah.
And Vanda, with regards to the 13 million, how many people are committed? Since last week you the meetup, the meet and greet, there were 8 people present. How many people on that list, the total list?
That are committed for?
The committed people, those who are committed.
I'm gonna say 4. Torsha, you didn't fill out the thing. You came after I left, so maybe 5.
Am I on the list?
You are not on the list, so are you 6?
Yes, I am. I've always been.
So quick question about that. So with the 5 or 6 investors that you have, how much has each investor committed to the project at this point?
We're asking for $10,000 each. So we can get 10, we'll have $100,000 to, purchase a property or put as a down payment or, yeah.
So are we open to, say, buying the land? And if you have 5, 6 committed person, go ahead and start that and then add as we go along. I mean, we sell off an acre here, an acre there, just depending on how many we purchase.
Yeah, and that's something we have to talk to the attorney about,
Oh, okay, okay.
how that's gonna work out. But yeah, that could work.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
'cause
one of the,
Go ahead.
oh,
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I think one of the things, the key things, to know, yeah, it's an investment. Some people will look at it as an investment, but I think overall, I think when I talked to the attorney, that'll be coming next week, one of the things she said was, the key thing is make sure that you guys, we have the same objective. I mean, because all in all, like every subdivision that's been developed, or anything that's been developed, there has to be like a common theme. And I think that's the key thing, like with me personally, me and my family living in this space, do we have the same, at least shared values? Because that's really important, how, what is this gonna feel like? Do we have the same goals? Do we want the property structured the same? That's kind of what I'm thinking about. I know the money will come and those things will come, but are we gonna be, are we really on the same page with the project, everyone who's interested?
Yep, I agree. That was one of the reasons for our meet and greet, because we do have to make sure we all get along, we like each other, and we have the same goals. And Toysha, I'll send you the questionnaire. And I was gonna do it on like a Survey Monkey, or I don't know if Google has a survey thing, I could do it and we could share the results with each other so that we can see we're all on the same page. I know a couple
Can
of
you
them-
email me the questionnaire, please?
Sure.
Me too.
Sure, I'll email it to everybody.
And a question on that. So if we're 5 people right now and it's 10,000 commitment, that's just 50. And we need 3 million. And for this, we need at least 20% down payment, right? 20 to 25. So how do we bridge that gap from 50 to?
Well, that's the total build out, not just to purchase the land.
Yes, but we still need 20% of our total. And then 80%, the bank will finance 80.
So you're thinking traditional bank, and there's more than one way of purchasing land.
Yes.
Yeah, because
So what's the plan?
there's owner finance. Well, we don't have the land. So once we find the land, then we'll look at the different ways that we can purchase it.
Okay,
Some of them, you can get land with no money down. It could be an equity play.
okay,
Where we agree with the land owner that in 3 years, we'll give them X amount of money because we would have made the property appreciate, and then we get a mortgage on it then. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it.
And
Okay.
how many
So,
acres of land are you looking for and what location?
So we decided the minimum is gonna be 10. The location is up in the air. We're looking at Waller, Fort Bend County, Kendleton, Katy, somewhere west. We're not going up north to Montgomery County or Brazoria County. We kind of want to stay west, southwest, northwest.
Work on this MLS,
I'm sorry?
checking the properties.
Yes, I've been checking, but I'm saying, it could be the best one won't be on the MLS.
Hello, Sophia May.
Is she talking to us?
Yes, yes, yes. And what if we don't, what if we cannot come up? So my question is more so, what if we cannot come up with the down payment, or what's our contingency if the money that we put together is not enough?
We get a lower price property. Or get more investors, or we try to get some, what's that called? What's that
A
called?
business loan?
Not a business loan, what's another word? Crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is an option.
It
So
can
What
be
does that
done.
mean?
our ideas are good. Other people will want to be a part of it, whether they live there or not. They may still want to invest in it. Like I'm an investor with Chris Senegal's project over in Fifth Ward. And I only put up $250, but it's gaining interest every year I leave my money in there. So he got a lot of people to put in a little bit of money, and he was able to fund his project.
Okay, so I'll chime in here. Yeah, there are multiple different ways that you can do it in terms of the acquisition of the land. What she's speaking about is a 506(3) C or B, in reference to, are you looking to go about doing the public advertising stuff? And then there's another way that you can go about it with accredited investors. However, you cannot promote that. That part is more so internally. You kind of have to know them. There's to be like a denomination of friendship to some degree, although it's very loose, right? I hear that you guys are open to some seller financing in that regard. Is everybody on the call familiar with like what owner financing is and all that stuff?
Yeah, you said owner finance?
Yeah, like seller finance, like creative finance and things of that nature. Okay, yeah. So I mean, in terms of that part, it's just like the participation part. The good thing about raw land is like it's a less emotional sale, especially if it's just vacant and things of that nature. I think a reference to us as a collective and us being able to service you guys, it really comes down to being able to figure out, where we want the land, and then it starts to move into highest and best use, because that's going to be the first thing to kind of, determine that. And then obviously on the real estate agent side, that'll kind of be able to, give you that kind of comp for income, especially when you're talking about this type of commercial, because it's not going to be like just like a replacement comp, right? I was just taking some notes here. Commercial mixed use for the elderly, that's great. There was one note that I had coming into this call in reference to it. I like that the tract size has gone up. I know at one point, Ben, we spoke, it looked like we were talking about 7 acres. Are you still committed to the individually owned tracts with the commercial residents having their each tract on one? Because there's some challenges there from like the parking perspective and all those things from like a civil perspective that present that way. I mean, there are different ways that we can kind of accomplish a commercial mixed use resolution for you, but that green space, that parking, all of those things are going to eat away at a lot of the land, if you will, right? So that was one thing that I looked at. Another thing, it sounded like you guys were looking into some subdivision, like subdividing the land, which I definitely think is great. I wonder, in reference to the 6 investors that you have committed, we've done a project similar to this one, but some pieces were larger than others. So internally, from a fiscal standpoint, I'm wondering if any of the 6 investors are more heavily leveraged from a capital standpoint, as opposed to just a flat rate 10,000. And if they do invest more, does it become, okay, well, you get more land for that investment, you know what I mean? To kind of make use of the existing people that we have a commitment on there. But I'm definitely seeing there, right? With us doing in the places that I've taken note of, the Waller, Fort Bend, Kendleton, all of these have, obviously unique permitting requirements and a lot of, just different procurement things that require that upfront capital that's just different from the acquisition of the land. I think that when we're just playing in Houston, as many of us know, Houston has no zoning, right? So it's easier to just kind of hop in on that play, right? But there are fiscal ramifications when we're in this juncture in space and kind of just figuring that off. Definitely agree with you that your best parcels of land you're going to find are off-market deals that you broker. So that comes down to having a fluid acquisition strategy, you know what I mean, and kind of just looking and seeing what that looks like. But just kind of shoring that up so we kind of know what that looks like. A recommendation that we had was in reference to the investors. If it is going to be a loan situation, are you guys hard committed on doing a single collective of an LLC and then applying as a unit, or going to get individual funding from in terms of like what you qualify for per the investor to maybe do that? So just kind of identifying that so we can kind of get in a framework of what that looks like. I also heard from you, Vanda, earlier. I heard you said as many as from 30 to 50 homes. Just kind of tightening that up.
30.
30, so we're hard on 30. Got it. I will make a note of that.
Hard on 30.
30 homes. And are these?
According to the survey that was done Thursday.
Okay, so you're going for 30 homes. All right. So when you're doing this, is this a hard commitment on the tracts of land in the framework that you said it before? So you had individually owned tracts with commercial and residential on each tract. Is that what you're still trying to do?
Say that one more time.
So the note that we had was that you had individually owned tracts of land with commercial and residential on each tract. Is that what you were looking?
Not on each tract.
Okay.
So the commercial will kind of be in the front of the property,
Mhm.
and then the residential would be behind it.
Okay, got you. So I took a look at some of the examples that you had sent us. Like for example, like Indigo. Indigo was a multi-mix level use. It's kind of like, are you familiar with like Steak 48 in Houston? How you have the restaurant here and then above it, you know what I mean? And then there's like the MDU part. So that was the one I saw. And then I saw the other one where it was kind of like where I grew up, like a Costco or a big strip industrial. And then on the backside, you have that. I think it just all comes down to how we want to, cover it. And when you're talking about that commercial in the front, we just have to look at all of the different requirements and what that has from a square footage implication on the project itself, right? So, in reference to us, we've contacted, obviously parts of our team to kind of get a better, understanding of what that looks like. And I'm kind of looking to get an understanding of like deeper into the scope, but this conversation is, obviously giving me that, and to figure out how much real estate per tract per person. So right now with the number that we had it at, it's looking at about 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. But we're gonna probably need a little bit more than that. So I'm wondering if you guys are willing to go over 10,000 square feet. And if that does put us there, do we have somebody assigned to tasking finding that land and doing those things? And what is you guys' timeline in reference to doing your designs and doing your pre-upfront work before we go into permitting and zoning? Sorry.
Those are good
Well,
questions.
we're not ready for design, or right? We don't even have the property yet. Should that not be first?
Those are separate entities. So, I mean, if you're talking about, you can bring an architect in and an architect can go and give you a plan and give you a drawing and renderings of how you would do something. And then you could shop it for where you want to go. You also have a component of funding here where they're trying to do crowdfunding. If they go and get a 3D rendering and they can say, okay, financially, I built and structured the deal as a developer would, that gives you a little bit more leverage than if you're having that conversation. So, for example, when she referenced Chris Senegal, I know him. So his are really mapped out to the point where you can almost see it visually because of the way that they pre-frame it, and then they kind of select where they're going. So by the time, he also has built that kind of trust with his audience where people are going to give him 250 before they even know where it's at. You know what I mean? So it just kind of, depends on where you kind of want to play, but there's that component of like the civil part to say, okay, what's feasible? And you have to do that feasibility study. And then you kind of matching where we're sourcing the land to what we're trying to do too. So there's kind of no wrong answer about how you could go about it, but in terms of a framework, especially when you're still trying to secure funding, that does present a challenge and an opportunity.
Well, we've never done anything like this before, so we're kind of going to rely on some experts who have done it and kind of can guide us with, the roadmap and how to go. One of the things with commercial, Toysha had mentioned last Sunday about having Like, are you guys familiar with Asian Town? Out here in Katy?
No, you said aging.
Asian
Aging.
Town.
Oh.
Katy Asian Town. And that was they built a themed Asian of all kinds, Korean, Japan, China, Hong Kong. I mean, you can see all of their culture into these strips. And so one thing that I was thinking about that I know could be very profitable is coming up with an African, Black African theme where we have people from the diaspora of all kinds, Caribbean, Nigerian, you have African American, South American, different parts, all kinds of food of Black culture everywhere. And it's never been done. I've never seen it done anywhere here on US soil. And I was telling Vanda, you know, that might be something to consider, either as a separate project or with this bill. Because I know, like here in Katy, there's land that's close to where Katy Asian Town is on that particular side that I don't know who owns it. It's a lot of land. Taking something like that and maybe doing an African theme. That was just my thought.
Yes, and historically, I do recall too there was Black Wall Street in the U.S., but it was more of African Americans coming together to build a powerful economic enterprise system. And I think it would be good in America, like you said, for the Africans and people of the African diaspora to network and to develop a strong economic community as well. And more so people are doing so now because even investors, private investors, there are private investors, billionaire investors who are investing in Africa, investing in the diaspora, and investing in economic communities because they see wealth not just for themselves, but to also empower people and communities and upliftment and getting people out of poverty.
Yes, absolutely. That was the whole goal for Black Neighbors Network, which is Black Neighbors Katy. I know we have our houses. A lot of us do own houses, but there's still a lot we can do as far as the unity part and the connecting the community and the circular economy that I see other communities doing that we so desperately need. So that's, you know, one of my biggest whys.
I have a question about the land. When in purchasing the land, do they provide information about the land? Like, is it surveyed so that you'll know what you're getting? When they actually do a survey of the land, it tells you, you know, they've already done the legwork to tell you, you know, what's underneath the dirt, you know, what exactly are you getting? And the areas that are kind of targeted, those different areas, the taxes, how much are the taxes in those different areas, and all of that type of, those types of things. Has anybody looked into that, or do we have somebody that's doing that already, or?
Well, we don't have the land yet. So once we identify a property, then all that will happen. That's the due diligence that you have to do. They may give you a survey, but it could be old. So you'd have to get it done. And that's one of the reasons why once we make this deposit and get this LLC, there's some money that's going to have to come out of there for things like that.
Yeah. No, you know, when I was asking about the taxes, I mean, you know, you can just, like different areas, there is already an established tax rate in certain areas. So, and then I guess to better state the question, when I was asking about the land, when somebody throws up a sign, land for sale, they don't tell you give you any detailed information about the land itself, just how many acres it is, and that's it. So
So a
that you
lot of
know,
times as a realtor, we can see things that the public doesn't see in if it's an MLS listing.
mhm.
They can tell us if it's unrestricted, if it's restricted to, 1, 2 properties on there. With some of them, they're selling these 10-acre tracts, but it's a HOA there and you can't put but one house on that 10 acres. They tell you that when you buy it. So that wouldn't work for us.
Yeah, and to just kind of piggyback off that, Blair, I definitely understand your question. I'm just chiming in for you guys, so one thing I heard Vanda say was that you guys were targeting an off market, right? So for Valeria, like a lot of it is you're going to be targeting like landowners that may or may not, most times they don't know the value of their land. Is kind of who you want to target, because if you go for somebody and you kind of overly disclose what you're trying to do, the price of that land is going to be ridiculous, right? So because they know it's the land is worth what the end user is trying to do on it at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like if you wanted to put a pool house, it's very different than someone wanting a community development of 30 homes. So, it's kind of, at their discretion. You spoke to, did somebody test the land itself? That's like a soils report, and those geotech engineers do that. That part is something that I think is a due diligence part, but you can bring somebody out to check the soil, so you're not just investing in something that's sinking. But again, it's all comes down to the structure of the team, and what that does. My question to you, Vanda, is you said you guys are making a deposit. What is that deposit going towards?
Well, in my mind, I'm thinking we need to have some money in escrow so that when we do find a property, we have to put earnest money down to hold it. We have to do surveys, like you mentioned. We have to, we're gonna need money to do those things. We need money to retain you guys. We don't know how much your services are gonna cost. We're gonna need our attorney. We gotta pay our attorney some money to draw up our paperwork, so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think in a situation like this, it's really like that phase approach. So it's all in phases. Like, and your last part is obviously going to be like the build of it, right? Because there's so much to get there. Just getting like clear to build is an accomplishment and a win in that regard, right? And making sure that you're structurally sound. I think for me and kind of where I sit, it's definitely going to be like super important that the entire team is in alignment, understanding organizationally from that structure, the responsibilities, and like kind of what that looks like, having like a hard like go no go on like where we're going, like when we are able to qualify. Okay, right now I'm seeing 5 potential areas, and now where do we go to knock that down, right? But obviously that big looming thing hovers around, well, where do we want to get this land, right? Because that dictates the costs per acre. All of it is hinging on that part. So yeah, what I would say, obviously just in general, I definitely think it's more than appropriate to secure those things. And with a situation of that size, you talked about getting money in escrow for down payments. It depends. I don't know your funding strategy. You could go like a transactional lender route if you wanted to go that way, or something of that nature. But I definitely would say for that upfront, us understanding the scope of it, so that we have the resources to kind of materialize that, is going to be huge for you guys.
Now, Dallas, let me ask you a question. So it wouldn't be too early to kind of lay out an architectural plan, a visual plan, because I think one of the things that I can see us running into, and I've heard we've had several talks with several people on, the interest itself, but what I see is everybody's concerned about all of the details that probably won't happen till maybe a year, from now. And my concern and the reason why I come in is the vision part of it. Do you want to do this? And we're talking to you because we want you to add to what this looks like. We want your input.
Yeah.
That's what these sessions. Yeah, we're trying to see like what it's going to cost, who the main stakeholders are, and the specifics. But at the same time, that's like the big picture. A lot of people when they come in, they want to talk about the details that after everything is done, that's what we talk about. But in this phase, we're kind of entertaining you know, would you like to be a part of this? And if so, what is your vision? How would you add to this plan so that you can get your wishes also into that plan? And, you know, even if we don't have the specific property, we do at least have what it kind of visually can look like. Not saying that
Yes.
that's a hardcore plan, but just an idea.
Yeah,
What do
so
you think?
the first quintessential question that you have to ask yourself in any realm like this one is, well, what can we do with the land? Because that comes down to zoning, right? So it's like when you're initially getting into that, we gotta kind of be able to get around the weeds and figure out what that looks like. There's two different ways you can go about that. Depending on the group, I've seen in my experience working with syndicates in situations of this environment, it's like the hardest thing is like getting the group on one uniform page, right? I think that just cutting it straight to you, like you having a hard set idea of what that looks like, that you guys are all in on drawings and what the bill looks like is going to either qualify some investors, move some off that may have been or not been, so you kind of know what you're moving with. And then in terms of the financials and building the deal, which is kind of like in that developmental side, that kind of comes with being able to assign what you built to the land, right? But I think ultimately, like let's say for example, you build something and it's like a commercial mixed use, and there's no way in the world that like Waller is going to let you do that. Waller just disqualified itself because it doesn't fit your vision, right? I think I move heavily on the begin with the end in mind to figure out what that looks like. However, obviously there's a compliance component that says, okay, what can we do on it? So I think it all just depends on where you guys are in reference to that level of commitment, right? Because you might have some investors and panels to where they're specifically analytical. They're like, okay, I don't care about the meaning behind it. I care about the deal. Show me the financials that shows me that my ROI, my equity is going to maintain its strength and it's going to be sustainable, right? Then you have other people who it's not going to be owner occupied or that type of situation. If I'm you guys, I think depending on how long, because I know you guys have been, thinking about this and from a ideal standpoint, you're looking at it and saying that, I think it is definitely appropriate to kind of just, I think a lot of what we do, just being frank with you, like, is like that initial step. Hey, how you doing? I heard that thing. Hi, Latoya. So I would say, you're not going to go wrong by you guys understanding exactly what qualifies within the project, right? So understanding, okay, hey, I want to do this and we want to do that design, it's going to really kind of help you guys get into this framework of saying, okay, I know that Katie's out, I know Kendleton may be in, Fort Bend may be out, or what have you, because the zoning restrictions are going to put you in a position to where you're going to disqualify that. Now, there's that level of flexibility to where you go, okay, well, if we want to do that, we'll play it to that. But it also depends on how you're analyzing the investment itself, right? I think that there should be like a non-sentimental value investment to it that goes in accordance to how are we going to get our money back and how are we going to pay back our investors? Because at the end of the day, like we don't want to default, right? So like that's the main thing, right? And that comes with having realtors and things that can kind of just survey what that area looks like. So to me, I don't think you're going in a wrong space. By knowing what you want to do, I think it'll make your investment package more attractive because you'll be able to bring them a deal. And I think that when you're looking at the land, it will kind of qualify or disqualify where you want to put that land. But that also is contingent upon capital, right? Because you can be flexible in that regard when you have the capital to float it and you go, okay, wherever I put these drawings, I can drop this building here and I can pay for it, right? But if you're going into an owner finance situation, that may look a little bit different because you're trying to find somebody that'll work with you and give you creative terms to your likeness. So there is kind of a push-pull there. That's why I think the first place that you want to kind of look is internally. And again, when you guys are going to get funding and things of that nature, they're going to want to see what they're funding, right? So it's that two-part thing that you kind of have to balance. But I don't think you're doing anything wrong in terms of a disservice, because the reality is, again, with syndicate situations like this, the hardest thing to do is have one shared vision and to keep everyone moving. And the best way to do that is looking at tangibles. What are we doing? Where are we doing it? What are the financials? What's the cost of entry? And how soon do I exit?
Right, because you have some people like me. I'm a visual. I have to feel it. I have to understand it. We talk about numbers after I can understand like my goal was who are my neighbors? What is it going to look like? What is it going to feel like? Is it going to be the same thing that I'm in now? A lot of people want to get away from HOAs. I've talked to several people, they don't like it. They want a little bit more freedom, something different. And you know, that's kind of the feedback that I'm getting from my end from, you know, several people that I talk to. That's why I speak like I speak. You know, we can talk about taxes, we can talk about return on investment, you know, as I can understand if everybody's vision and their desire is the same.
Yeah, definitely. I think at this juncture, probably one of the most important things for you guys, obviously entity formation for sure. And you know, having your conceptual drawings, obviously we are not going to be able to do like a whole bunch of civil until we get, you know, that because we don't have a location, getting the specs to the county that we want, and then putting together an execution plan. That part is the glue, honestly. It's the measuring stick. What does the execution plan look like so that we can fit it to your goal under budget and at the desired effect that you want? I think all things considered is kind of what the upfront work looks like for us. And then we're able to, you know, align with the resources that we need to help you guys push this project forward.
Dallas, I have a question. You mentioned you don't want to tell the property owner what your plan is because then they'll want to mark it up. So how do you get around that?
It depends. So I mean, that's just all in negotiation. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like,
well, I think it's good to be upfront with the property owner and maybe just even offer them, you know, equity joint venture, because there's a lot of landowners, when they see the value of a project, they'd want to come in as a partner too.
Yeah, that is an option.
yeah, it all depends on how you want to do it. You mentioned doing a balloon payment with an investor, and things of that nature. There's a litany of things that you can do. It just all depends on how you want your structure to be, and how much equity you want to give up. Because you know, at the age old, you know, story in real estate, it's like he who controls the dirt controls the deal. You know what I mean? And if you want to be in bed with a guy that owns the deal because he owns the dirt, that presents problems and challenges sometimes. You know, for us, I've seen situations with our clients to where they want to buy the land outright, and what they negotiated for may be insanely lower than what it costs because you don't know the distressed state that the seller might be in. I mean, economically, we're not in like the best time. If you come with a package that makes sense, some people are letting that go. Now, if you own that land free and clear, now you're talking about a whole bunch of different investment options in terms of loans that you now qualify for. So I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. I think it's just get the land secured however you can so that you can move accordingly in that result.
So would your recommendation be to buy a land with utilities and water already there, or raw land with no utilities, no water? Because
I think that
big difference in the price.
It would be ridiculous for you guys not to go and get the MEP locked up, right? Your mechanical, your electrical and plumbing, because the timeline of this project would expand ridiculously if you don't have that secured. I think that one of the first things we want to do is make sure that our resources are tied into that land. If you do nothing else, you need to make sure. Because here's the thing, if we're limited on capital and we're looking at it from a perspective of, you know, now here's the thing, the other caveat is if you have investors with a wallet and they're like, hey, we can get a discount on the land, but then we have to run all these other things to it. You know, that's a thing, but I really, really think that from a time perspective, you'll do yourself a disservice if you don't have those things accounted for.
Yeah. Because Toysha sent me something today. It was a 10 acre tract, but it was 79,000. Of course, there's nothing on it. And I'm like, those tracts, they won't let you do all that stuff that we want to do, even though the price is right, but they won't let you.
Because there's that two-part thing, right? First is going to be that what are we allowed to do from zoning, and then there's that feasibility part, right? So I mean, in the acquisition of land, a lot of times there are like feasibility studies, right? Where like to what Valeria said, like we got to look to say, hey, is this feasible to even do what we're attempting to do on this parcel of land, right? So do you guys have like a commercial land broker that's in this group that you're working alongside?
No, we have some at EXP though.
Okay, so that's going to be a humongous part. Somebody that has done dealings in commercial land. I got some friends over at JLL, and you know, that just deal with land alone. You know what I mean? And in reference to, you know, how you want to go about that, I think that there's a three-part component for you guys. It's the execution strategy, which is what we do. There's that funding perspective, and then there's the timeline perspective to say, okay, when do we want to do it and how are we going to go about it? I think right now, if you guys are making deposits and doing it, a lot of that upfront cost needs to go for what we had spoke about. Obviously, you got to do your entity structuring and making sure that conceptually you guys are in alignment with that. And there's no better way to do it than have some type of conceptual drawing. Now, if I'm not in the cosmetics business, like I don't do FF&E, right? But if I'm you guys, I want to know, like, hey, okay, is it going to be a commercial use where you have the buildings on the top of it? Is there going to be this community in the front? And I think that'll help you guys. So I think all of those things are resources that need to get pulled so that you can materialize this project into something that's like, hey, let's move on this. And then this is the people. And you may find that doing that may, garner a little bit more interest from your current investors to invest more money in capital, or be able to work alongside people in that regard. But yeah, for me personally, I mean, there's two ways you can go about it. You can go to that landowner and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Don't be surprised if the guy says, okay, yeah, if I'd have sold it to you for 5,000, now I want 500,000 because I think you're loaded, right? But on the other side, you do, by partnering with the landowner, that gives you room in that because you can put him on there and it can expedite your process. So it all depends on how you want to play it. And again, you may find that the landowner on the land that you have does not share the ideals that you have, okay? So, you just got to kind of figure out how much involvement you want from that.
Yeah, that's why we want to find landowners that, we want to keep it within our culture too. So we would love to, find landowners that look like us and willing to partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I'm just taking notes and getting to know, everybody and what that looks like. And I know I did have some pre-framing notes coming in. So project location, cool. The 10 acres. I'm gonna kind of get back and kind of see if that those specs are just in terms of like feasibility for what you're trying to do. And thank you for clarifying in reference to the individually owned tracks because yeah, that was a challenge. But obviously, when I kind of relay that back, kind of seeing what space that gives us. So yeah, there was real estate required for small residential tracts does not have. Okay, yeah, so it's really just the parking and all of the different things. This is why I think it's so essential for us to get a conceptual drawing so that we can understand what that looks like. And as you're shopping these things, it'll let you know, hey, we can use this amount of space and that to kind of figure out what that looks like. So my personal recommendation as a path forward for you guys is to absolutely 100% denote that deposit that you're speaking about into the upfront work that can materialize the project itself. And that's exactly why we're here. On the other side, I think that you guys should converse amongst yourselves and say, okay, are we trying to go for a collective loan as one, or are we trying to do it individually? Personally speaking, depending on how you guys are going about it, I think that you guys will have a lot of compounding advantage if each of you all have spending power and you've collateralized that or backed that with, whatever that looks like, in lieu of us not having the land yet. Now, it's very different if you have a piece of land and they're evaluating the deal and then they want to evaluate you as a collective. But it just all depends on that timeline, and for us, the best way that we can kind of move forward in reference to helping you bring this to life is obviously just hampering down and solidifying those ends that we talked about so that you can have a stronger offering to your investors and a stronger offering moving forward to materialize your project.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments right now? No, you don't know what you don't know. Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. This has been very informative and I did record this, so I will send the recording out to each of you if you want to go back over it. And I'll also send out this questionnaire to everyone and be sure to add to it if there's something that you want on there that you want everyone polled on, something that's important to you, let me know.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you all.
I appreciate you. And remember, next week, we're gonna have the attorney. She's gonna, talk to us. So any questions you have for the attorney, send them to me. I'll try to send her the questions beforehand, so she kind of get a framework on what to talk about.
Okay, great.
All right, I'll see you guys next week, or if not before.
All right, now, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.